candid conversations, unfiltered opinions, and humor with Abeg's podcast.
Hello, welcome everybody. Today, we have a conversation about something that people generally struggle with, but most people wouldn't know unless you visit their homes. And that would be organizing, right? We could look put together in the outside in the community. However, things could be topsy-turvy at home. So I have an expert with me. I met her a few days back, and it was such a beautiful conversation we had. So today we're sharing the conversation with you. So if your mother, a busy adult, a young adult trying to figure out this thing called life, a human, this is something that we can all benefit from conversation wise. So we're going to talk about organizing. And I have the pleasure of having Lucy Wahl with me today. Lucy is actually the founder of LMW Edits. So basically, her initial, we talked about the title, too late. I mean, we're running with it. So Lucy, welcome. How are you?
Thank you so much for having me. I am doing great. I am happy to be here.
Happy to have you. Happy, absolutely exciting to have you. So, of everything you could have done, becoming an astronaut, a physicist, a doctor, a chef, you decided to help people with organizing. What led you down this path?
Yeah, what possessed me, right?
Yeah,
Especially because I do.
To be nice, see.
No, I mean, and it is a question that people do ask me because I have a lot of expensive education. So I went to an Ivy League undergrad. I have an MBA from a top 20 program. And my original goal was not to be an organizer. My original goal was to work in nonprofit fundraising. And I did that for a few years. And the reason I went and got an MBA was because I wanted to accelerate that career. So this kind of came out of nowhere. So I was in business school, focused on going back to fundraising, and I was having an amazing time. Like, the people were so interesting. The work was so interesting. It was a way of thinking about the world I had never really experienced because, again, I was in nonprofit. I wasn't in a for-profit situation. And so it was a powerfully transformative experience for me. Now, I don't think MBAs are powerfully transformative for everyone. I think it really depends on the program you're in. I went to the UCLA Anderson School of Management, which I highly recommend. But for me, it was transformative. And while I was there, I was sort of confused about how I was able to keep up because remember, I'm wildly behind. I've never worked in a for-profit organization. I've never really taken a lot of math and econ before in my life, and you have to do that. So I'm wildly behind and I'm trying to catch up. And I was able to do that. And I was sort of wondering why. Everyone else here is just as smart or smarter than I am, right? And then you start to get to know people. And maybe you get invited over to their apartment. And then you see how other people are living. And it had literally never occurred to me because I grew up in a very organized home. I was taught organizing skills throughout my life. It never occurred to me not to organize my apartment, even as at the time, 26-year-old. And it became clear that not everyone had learned those skills and not everyone knew the power of an organized space to really help you succeed. I mean, honestly, because my space was supporting me, that's how I was able to keep up. And so that kind of planted the seed. And then I graduated. I started looking for jobs back in nonprofit fundraising, and I got a little disillusioned because it turns out that the nonprofit sector doesn't really understand what an MBA does for you. And it was sort of like, oh, we'll hire you to do the same job you were doing before. You just need to raise more dollars in the same way. And I was like, it's not inspiring. Like, I still believe in fundraising for nonprofits. I do it on a volunteer basis, but as your job, it was sort of like, oh God, now what am I going to do? And the nice thing is because I'd been in an MBA program, people were starting businesses. And I thought, well, if the dude next to me thinks he can start the next unicorn, surely I can start a small business. Like, of course, we have the same experience. And so then it was a question of what am I good at? And that's when the whole organizing thing came back to me. It's like, oh, I can make a difference in somebody's life by helping them organize their space. And the other thing I did was a little research into the industry. And this is a while ago. This is in like 2011. And organizing wasn't as big as it is now. We didn't have like the TikTok restock videos. We didn't have the Instagram before and afters. And most organizing and organizing content was kind of for people living the suburban lifestyle. So, house in the suburbs, maybe mom stays home. Like, we've got a basement, we've got an attic, we've got a 3-car garage, that kind of situation. And that was not my reality at the time. It's still not my reality. I live in San Francisco. Like, we don't have a lot of space here. And so I thought, I'm going to do this for the people like me, the people who are successful and educated and living in a city and trying to start a family and have a life in a city. And there's no roadmap for how to do that in an organized way, because everyone just thinks like, when you succeed, you move to the suburbs. So yeah, that's the long and short of it of how I got into it.
Love it. So you correlated being organized and success.
Mhm.
And how important is that relationship? Because people do make I don't want to call it an excuse because it sounds judgmental. People do make the assertion that, or people do believe that organized chaos can also result in success, right? As long as I understand my mess, I can be successful, right? Is that really true? Is it an organized chaos regardless, or chaos breeds chaos and can actually impede success?
Yeah, I have a few thoughts on that. I will say I don't think that you have to be organized to be successful. I mean, how many examples are there in the world of
Right,
people who are wildly successful and not organized?
right.
However, if you feel like you're not reaching your full potential, if you feel like you're behind for some reason, like I felt in business school, if you feel like everybody else knows something I don't, then getting organized might be the thing you need to really level up. And I would also look at not just material success, like how much money you're making, how many promotions you're getting, whatever. I would look at, how do you feel when you're at home? How's your family life at home? Like, are we all kind of happy and relaxing together and home is our sanctuary? Or are we stressed out and yelling at each other at home? And there's so many reasons this could be the case. I'm obviously not a therapist, but sometimes having an organized space can take all of that down. It can just take the stress down. It can take the conflict down. And what I always say is that being organized makes your life easier on a very practical level. You can find things, you can get things done, you can save time. It's really, really basic. And that's, I think, why people don't really want to admit that it could help, because it's like, I want the fancy solution. I want something glamorous that's going to change my life. I don't want you to come tell me if I fold my laundry and put it away right after I do it, that my life is going to be better, because that's not exciting, but it's also true.
It's true. It's not fun getting dressed and going through a basket trying to find
No,
thing. Yeah, I know.
especially not when you're late. Not fun.
Yes, I've put myself in that. This is just full disclosure. The times where the weekend is so busy that, you pat yourself on the shoulder, when laundry is actually done and we're kind of like ready for Monday. However, you just need to take a breath, and a breath turns into, falling asleep or getting distracted to do something else. And then here you are Monday morning trying to jet out. And you're like, where is that one article of clothing that matches with this one? And, it usually is not a good way to start a day, just in my experience.
No,
Very
it's
humble.
not.
So going back to lifestyle and culture, right? In the Western world, America specifically, we're collectors, right? We like to, we're consumers, right? Do you think that that contributes to disorganization if we have too much stuff for the space we have?
100%, without a doubt. So I hear a lot from my clients, like, I don't have enough time to get organized. And that's partially why I do what I do, because I can do what you need to do for you and with you in way less time than you could do it by yourself. So it's great. I save people time. That's awesome. But not everyone can afford to work with an organizer. And pretty much everyone will say, I don't have time to get organized. And if you look at your day, you don't. But what I will say about that is that it's a slow process. It's not like, this weekend, I'm going to overhaul my whole house and everything's going to be great from here on out. It's a slow process of building on skills. And maybe in the morning, you usually like throw your pajamas on the floor and kind of rummage through and get dressed. And maybe you just start by like, okay, I'm going to put my pajamas like on the hook where I want to have them for tonight. And that's the only thing I change. And then I teach my kids, like, okay, the pajamas go here when you get dressed in the morning, and that's it. And you keep building and keep building, which is another reason why no one likes to talk about this, because that's not exciting either. It's a before and after online is so satisfying. I love a before and after. It's gorgeous, but that's not what our lives look like. And this is where the consumption comes in, because The before and afters online are not showing you how much stuff that organizer threw away or donated. It is so much. And when you are overwhelmed, when you have no time to get organized, the easiest number one way to be able to get organized is to have a minimal amount of stuff to organize. It's just off the top. Like when I'm working with somebody who's really overwhelmed or they're moving or they're needing to downsize or whatever, I say, let's be ruthless. Let's only keep what we really, really need, because this is the way you're going to take all the stress off of all of these things. And some of my mom clients, they'll say, the stuff has voices. It talks to me. Like I can't get a break because all of my stuff in my house is talking to me. And so when you remove the stuff, you remove those voices, right? So with my clients, number one, we're focused on getting down to an amount that person and that family can manage. And that amount is different for everyone, by the way. And I don't really judge what that amount is. It's determined by so many things. It's determined by your leisure time. It's determined by the size of your home. It's determined by how many people are in the home, because, it's one thing to organize a person living alone. It's quite another to organize a family of 5 or 6, right? So it really is dependent on your circumstances. There's no one right answer. But when I work with somebody, my default assumption is everything's up for discussion. There's nothing that's sacred. We're going to talk about everything, and we're going to keep what's important to you and your family, and we're going to let the rest go because it's going to make everything simpler.
Right. And that's very important. There's a deeper topic I'm going to delve into, but I want to talk about the moms, everything in my house is talking to me. And that is such a thing. And until you put it in those words, it never really occurred to me as a mom. And it makes sense why certain things drive me crazy, because it feels noisy. Right?
Yes.
The disorganization feels very loud, very noisy. An example is my family members have a distinct ability to step over things and get on with their lives. I can't. Why is a dryer sheet in the middle of the hallway? Did everybody not see this? Because I know almost everybody walked past this hallway about 3 times before I got into it, and you don't want to nag, but however, it nags you. So that is such a thing. Thank you for saying that.
Of course. It's such a common experience. You are in no way alone. That is really common.
It makes sense. That speaks to me on a different level. Thank you for saying that. And, talking about things talking to you or at you, as moms, we hang on to keepsakes, okay, or family members, whatever, whoever. How do we navigate that slippery slope when a keepsake holds a memory or memories?
Yes, this is a challenge for just about everyone. Even if you meet people who are self-described minimalists, they will have done a lot of work to get where they are. The way we are built is to hold on to things, because when back eons ago, we were just trying to survive, and stuff was part of how we survived. And so it's really deeply ingrained in us to want to keep stuff. So if you find it hard to declutter, please know that's very, very normal, and it doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. But if you have a goal of having an organized home that's not full of stuff, you're going to have to work through that challenge instead of just stopping and saying, I just want to keep everything, because that's also not possible, right? We can't keep everything. There's literally no room. There's no house big enough. I promise you, I've been in some of the biggest houses there are. There's not enough room. I mean, we have people who have like a giant house and then auxiliary storage space and then another auxiliary. The limit doesn't exist, And so at some point you have to figure out what's meaningful to me in a way that I can make this vivid in my life. So I don't recommend that moms keep tubs and tubs and tubs of baby clothes and toddler clothes and kids' artwork, because the reality is multiple big boxes of stuff crammed together living in your garage or your attic or your basement, it is the same lived experience as having thrown it away. You never see it. You never experience it. You never trigger those memories. And so what I encourage people to do is think about, what are the few things that are really good triggers for some of your most important memories, and how can you keep them vivid in your life? So maybe it's like, let's not have the box of photos in the garage. Let's have a curated album. Maybe it's, let's not keep tubs and tubs of baby clothes. Let's have a shadow box with the outfit that we came home from the hospital in. It's these kinds of ideas of like keeping it vivid. And also, No shame in just taking a photo and getting rid of the physical object. That's also very much allowed because that will do the same function of triggering your memory when you scroll through your photos on your phone. So yeah, I really like people to think about it in terms of coming from a place of lack in a place of fear of like, if I don't keep this, I will lose part of this valuable relationship I have with my child. Instead of coming from that perspective, thinking of how can I enjoy these memories throughout my life?
Right. And I think moms, especially moms, keep article of clothing to be able to pass down. So
Yes.
there's a certain pride or memory, talking about memory triggers when you see your grandchild in something your child wore at their age. So an article or two of clothing, as opposed to the whole gamut of everything that was through their childhood, I think would be a good place to start. When you talk about the auxiliary storage space, it rings so true because I know you are in a space where you live in a city where people don't have, big houses and garages. But something that is very common in suburbia is you'll find a beautiful house with about three car garages, and all the cars are parked outside because the garages are started.
Yep. Oh, that's true here too. That's a thing. That's for real.
The things that we do as humans, like, okay, why?
It doesn't make sense. But it does make sense because we're operating out of like fear and we want to survive and we want to take care of our families. And it's like, if there's something in that garage that someday will help me take care of my family, I don't want to lose that opportunity. So that's what I try and reframe with people is like, let's not be fearful and keep everything just in case. Let's be intentional and keep the things that most add value to our lives and know that for most of us, not all of us, but for most of us, the things that we need that we don't already have in our homes, we can access. We have an opportunity.
Right. And just delving into like a slightly more serious aspect of things before we even get into that. So if there's ever such a thing as accidental clutter, okay, so people start businesses in your homes and you have boxes and boxes of merchandise that is either not moving as expected or the business had to slow down and now they have like a basement full of products they haven't sold or they're waiting to sell. In that case, what would be a helpful process to go through for specifically that if a business owner is just maybe stuck in one, at a standstill? They have every intention to move this product and sell. However, the only place I can store this product right now is my basement, and my basement looks cluttered, and I don't know what to do.
Yeah, that is a very real challenge. And people who work for multi-level marketing companies really have this challenge because they keep getting sent stuff. And not just like the stuff to sell, but also the marketing materials and the ideas and like, you could do this party or you could do this, advertising thing. And they get super, super overwhelmed. And I love in this case to recommend boundaries, not just physical boundaries for the stuff, but mental boundaries for what ideas you're going to double down on and what ideas you're going to say, that's a good idea. It's not for me at this time, and let it go. Because there's like, if you have inventory that's not moving, there's so many ways you could try to sell that inventory, but there are so many options that sometimes people get sort of like stuck and they're like, there's so many options. I don't know what to do. So I'm going to do nothing. So it's more helpful to pick like, all right, I think what I can do is I can put up some more Facebook ads and that's just going to be the thing I'm going to do or whatever it is. I don't sell physical goods, so I don't actually know how this works. But to give yourself a boundary of I can't do everything, but I will do something. And then for the physical stuff, it's like, I can't let this take over my house. I'm going to hate that. My family's going to hate that, but I'm going to carve out this space and this is going to be dedicated to my business. And then I can't order any more stuff to hold in inventory until I sell what's here. And so giving yourself those boundaries and that structure kind of gets you going. I've seen this so many times just with personal items in my clients' homes, like getting things a boundary actually helps them move forward through the problem because now it's like, I don't have infinite possibilities. I have a way forward.
Right. I think that's very helpful because I know a lot of people who are stuck in that position where you've invested a lot of money into a product and by happenstance and life in general, things did not go as fast as you thought they were going to go or as steadily as you thought they were going to go. So it can be frustrating. It's kind of like almost like a physical visual reminder of
Yes.
a stalemate. Like,
Yes.
it's still here. So
Yeah. And I see that also with my crafters. So people who like to do sewing or other kinds of crafts. And if you know any crafters and hobbyists, you know that people's stashes go from like nothing to enormous very quickly. And then if you stop actually doing the craft, your stash there is a reminder of, hey, you're not doing this. You spent all this money and all this stuff and you're not doing it. And that can be really debilitating for people. And that is part of why, like, with crafters and hobbyists, I really encourage them to keep only the best, only the stuff they're really excited about, even if they already did invest money in it, because just the fact of having so much stuff is holding them back. And it's like, yes, you spent money, but that money's already gone. You're not going to get it back. Well, you might if you can resell some cool stuff, but you're not going to get that money back. And you're also not going to start re-engaging with the project until you free up this mental space.
Absolutely. That is so true. Just delving a little bit into the more serious aspect of hoarding when it actually becomes a disability of sort. Where can a person, for whoever's listening to us, where can a person notice the red flags when it's heading towards hoarding? And I know by the time it gets to a position where it's impeding everyday living, people have a very hard time letting go. And what can be used as support, either a family member utilizing it or a person utilizing it for themselves to support letting go or to support addressing it before it gets bad?
Yeah. So there's a lot of different ways to look at it. I would recommend that anyone who's worried about a friend or family member to check out the Institute for Chronic Disorganization. It's sort of the national organization for people who help people with this issue. And that's what it's called in the industry. Rather than hoarding, we refer to it as chronic disorganization. There's a little less identity there and a little more just addressing the process rather than the person. But either is fine. It's totally fine. What we worry about is if people around a person are starting to see a problem and the person themselves does not see a problem. So they either don't notice or they think it's okay. And that's where you start to go, okay, like, because for what I call my garden variety clients, I don't like to use the word normal because what is normal? I don't even know. But for my garden variety clients with a lot of stuff, they know they have a lot of stuff and they don't want to have a lot of stuff. They just don't necessarily know where to start or how to go about it or how to make the decisions. And that's the kind of work that I do. When you get into chronic disorganization, you're dealing with people who don't really want to acknowledge that there's a problem because they're really attached on a psychological level to the stuff. And it's associated with OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. It's associated with anxiety. It's associated with depression, associated with childhood trauma. So there is a lot going on when somebody becomes a sufferer of chronic disorganization. And because of that, a wraparound approach is really what's recommended. You don't just want to try and find an organizer. You need a mental health professional, possibly a social worker. Here in San Francisco, you can get to work with a social worker if you struggle with this. And it's about focusing on how to help and support the person in dealing with the issues that brought them to chronic disorganization. So chronic disorganization isn't the problem, it's the symptom of the problem. So if you can get somebody mental health assistance and possibly food preparation assistance or medical assistance or something and get them feeling like they're more solid, they're more grounded, they're more confident, they're more resilient, then they'll be willing to go, oh, I don't need this stuff to support me anymore. But I will say it's a very long process. It's very slow. There is a lot of backsliding. And for those reasons, that's why I don't work with people who struggle with chronic disorganization, because for me, it's not a personality fit. Backsliding is really hard for me to handle. And I don't want to, people are in such a delicate place when they're dealing with this that I don't want to put anybody in a position where they're understanding that they're making me frustrated. That would be terrible. That would be a worst case scenario. But I do know wonderful, wonderful organizers they're so patient and they're so kind and they love working with these clients because when they see a little bit of success, that fills them up. So there are organizers that specialize in this for sure. And they're connected to the whole support network of other professionals.
Beautiful. So I love that you highlighted that it's far more than the disorganization is more
Mm-hmm.
of a mental health need or
Yes.
cry for help, is a symptom of something bigger. So that's very important for people to know. And I know even when we watch those shows on, I believe it's TLC, Hoarders Buried
Yeah.
Alive, there's often that frustration from family members that why can't you just let go? Why can't you bury this
Yeah.
that has been dead for 6 months? Why is there things everywhere? It's not just a person. It's not that easy to just let go. There's a lot of attachment, a lot of moving parts, for lack of a better way to explain that. So thank you so much for touching on that. So you mentioned backsliding. And given that we're humans, we're creatures of habits, right? So
Yes.
with your variety, garden variety clients, have you, experienced at any point during your career doing this and establishing this beautiful business that sometimes, like even the most educated, most intelligent, brilliant people, sometimes, even when they go through this process, like, wow, this is so great. I have so much peace. I feel so much at peace. And maybe later on, like months down the line, you check in or they reach out to you. They kind of sort of, maybe not completely back to where they
Uh-huh.
started. You see like the makings of what got us involved in the first place. And how do you go about that?
Yeah. So what I will say is the way that I work is different from many other organizers. I do a very detailed approach to organizing. So by the time I finished organizing a space for someone, we have both physically seen and touched every object in the space. I mean, every paperclip, every set of chopsticks, every sock, everything. And so I have set them up with everything is now known. And so you know where everything is. We've talked about it. We've set up the system according to how you live, how your family lives, how you think about things. It's super customized to you. And the reason I do that is because when someone backslides, which everyone does, as you pointed out, they know what the baseline is and they can get back there on their own. Because through working with me, they've practiced what it takes to do that. They know, oh, I need to get this basket and pull everything out of it and see what's here and make a decision about everything. They know how to do that. So what I'm doing is I'm doing the organizing, but I'm also teaching the skills as I work. And I'm doing it on such a detailed level and such a personal level that they're set up for success, even if they backslide. And I do pride myself on not getting called back for repeat clients unless they're changing the purpose of a room.
Oh, okay.
So I'd say I'll do a home office for a young couple that just got married. And then 3 years later, they call and they're like, we're having a baby. It needs to be a nursery. And I'm like, great. So that's the kind of repeat business I get. And I do have some longer term clients, mostly from when I was first starting out and I didn't know how to set that boundary really well and how to be really clear about like
Got it.
transferring the skills. And that's fine. But what fills me up is making sure that somebody has a better life. And literally one of our clients from this spring said, you've improved our quality of life. And that's what I'm after all the way.
That's awesome. Yeah. As a mom, career woman, and everything in between, organization really does take a back burner, to be honest. And you and I were talking about this the other day. And when the noise gets too loud, I just go missing, and you find me in a closet room
Yep.
somewhere, just basically dumping everything and reorganizing. I talked talked to you about my members of my family that are neurospicy. We're talking ADHD spectrum, all of that stuff. Because of the way the brain is set up, they're not necessarily the most organized people. It's not because they choose not to be organized, is that things does not bug a neurospicy brain the way it bugs a neurotypical brain. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I can function, life is great, I'm happy, let's go on. What organization is just a sock? I have one on, one is on the floor, I'm fine with it, right? So for everybody who's listening to us, whether they're on the neurospicy spectrum anywhere, and also loved ones, mothers, fathers, uncles, aunts, you name it, of neurospicy individuals. So how do we make sense of life while not being critical, but
Yes.
supportive, and also live in our own sanity?
Yes. So it comes back to some things I've already talked about actually, which are customizing and minimizing and boundaries. So customizing, I've worked with several people who either have an official diagnosis of some kind or who think, I think I might be this, but I just haven't gotten a diagnosis yet. And my response is always the same. I'm not a mental health professional. I'm not going to base this on the diagnosis that you have. I'm going to base it on what you tell me. I'm going to ask you, is this going to work for you? Will it work for you if the pens are in a cup here, or do you want them in a drawer over there? You tell me, and I will figure out the system, because the idea of an organizing system is that it's built around the way you think, and different systems for different people will look different, and it won't always be that beautiful thing you see on Instagram or TikTok, but it will work. And so I really focus on function first and making sure it's designed for that person. So if you're a mom and you've got a neurospicy child, it's about talking to the child about like, hey, I got to help you grow up and be a person who can take care of themselves. And part of that is going to be picking up after yourself, because no one's going to want to move in with you if you can't pick up after yourself. But I also know that your brain, we call it, for one of my family members who's young, we call it a zoomy brain. If you have a zoomy brain, it's hard to concentrate. It's hard to do things just because you know you should. And so you tell me, how will you get excited about picking up your stuff off the floor? And really involving them in the process. I think sometimes that my moms want to do everything because it's faster, right? It is. It's so much faster for you to clean up than for you to take your kid and walk them through it and talk to them about it. And who's got the time? But I think being organized is the same as parenting, in that it's a long game. Like we can't just like pick it up and call it good. We have to like teach these skills and ask questions. And I always encourage my parents to involve kids starting pretty young, like 4 or 5 at least, maybe younger if you can, because the more being organized is part of their daily routine, whether or not they're neurospicy, the easier it is to gradually add to those skills over time. I mean, you don't want to end up like a client I had with a neurospicy teenage daughter who was absolutely fit to be tied. And I totally understand. The room was definitely not tidy. But then I'm talking to the daughter and it's like, no one ever taught her how to organize her room. And she's neurospicy. So she was just like, I don't even know what to do. So I do nothing. And that's not where you want to end up, right? Like that's a recipe for disaster. And so I really encourage people to customize around their children, not as a diagnosis, but as an individual. Because yes, you have a diagnosis and we know these things about you based on the diagnosis, but you tell me what your brain says. So that's customizing, minimizing, because of the zoominess of the neurospicy brain. The more stuff there is, the more distracted you'll be, because there's more things in your visual field to get distracted by. So really minimizing for people that are neurospicy is really, really helpful, because that allows them to focus a little bit better. And then boundaries, especially for families. I'm super big on boundaries. And this is sort of not popular right now, but I'm really big on each storage space has one person assigned to it. So like if you have children who share a room, you divide the closet down the middle. You say, this is your side, this is your side. The reason I like this is because it's accountability, but it's also empowerment. So it's accountability in that, like, if you divide the closet down the center for your kids, you can walk in and see who did what. It's very obvious, and they can see it too. So they're accountable. It's like, oh man, my sibling tidied up, I didn't. It's obvious. When you mix people, and with adults too, by the way, this is not just for kids, for adults too. When you mix people, there's no one person who's responsible. And so everyone figures, oh, someone else will do it. And guess who that someone else is? That's mom. So I really like a boundary. And it's also empowerment, right? Because then the negative feedback is there, but the positive feedback is there. Like if one side of the closet is clean, the kid goes, hey, I did that. My sibling didn't today, but I did that. And I'm proud of that. So I really like setting boundaries for, this is your space. You're responsible for keeping it to the standard that we've talked about together. We've set it up for you so that you're set up to succeed. And now we're going to see, you're responsible. You're empowered.
That is beautiful. It's very individualized. It doesn't criticize, and it doesn't break down, because the neurospicy brain is just that. I like how we have these description for the zoomy brain. I'm going to start using that. It moves fast. The brain does move fast.
Yeah.
And the more you give the brain to focus on, the more zoominess you get from it. So minimizing things is just, yes, they get to focus. They get to see less things to basically disorganize. It works. And I think, sometimes we all grew up very differently.
Yeah.
But, with parenting, I don't remember, maybe I left my manual in the hospital. This gets little
Yep. They just hand them to you. Here you go.
You know, now, kids don't come with manuals, and there's this expectation. This is where realistic versus unrealistic expectation comes in. Well, you should know. You should do better. It doesn't quite always translate. So I feel for the girl, and I also feel for mom, because I'm sure mom was just, she should know to tidy up. She's a girl, or she's whatever. I just think it was, but kids do need guidance and some form of a foundation. So I feel for both of them. So as we wrap up our conversation, the question that I have for you, we got talking about neurospicy and it completely flew out of my head. But when it comes to, you kind of touched it when you talked about the neurospiciness of organizing. When it comes to dividing the closet, there's a tendency to compare, right? So, and siblings do kind of compete. What is friendly enough?
Sure do.
Right. So how can a parent navigate that without being overly critical of, say, a child who organization is not their strong suit? Because we all have what we prefer to do and what we prefer not to do. So yes, we are organized. We've minimized things, and then we've created this boundary where everybody kind of like has their space. So how do we encourage organization when kids are involved without over focusing on the differences?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a really good question. I have a sister who's less than 2 years younger than me, and we were very competitive growing up. So I really feel this. And I was the more organized one. And definitely she always felt like, oh, I'm the slob. Everyone thinks I can't do it. So I get it. I would say, I think taking a more inquisitive rather than evaluative approach. So if a kid is kind of struggling, asking them, why does this feel overwhelming? Do you not know what to do next? Like, let me help you instead of let me evaluate you. When I'm working with clients, adults and kids alike, I ask so many questions, and I ask stupid questions, simple questions, because I find that we don't ask them of ourselves enough. Like in order to get through life, we just have to make some assumptions and move on. And so when I'm in the home, I'm often asking the unasked question that everyone's like, oh, yeah, we didn't talk about that. We just sort of assumed. Like I'll ask, like, who does the dishes? And they'll be like, oh, actually it's this person. I'm like, so are the dishes organized so that this person can put them away easily? No, they're not. They're organized by this other person. And so, yeah, so you got to match up who's responsible with how you organize. And when something's not working, to go to question asking rather than, because this is what I found as a professional organizer. If I tell someone what to do, it will not work. I mean, in the moment, they might be like, sure, organizer, that's what I paid you for. But in the long term, they won't succeed. And so it won't last. And so if I ask more questions and build them a system that's for them, not for me, then I have so much more success. And I think that is part of where some of my parents have a hard time, especially if kids are like in that middle school, high school zone, is like letting go of the fact that the way they think about their stuff is not the way I think about my stuff. And that being okay. Now, you got to have a minimum standard. I do suggest that my families set a minimum standard. Like for some families, it's like your laundry's in your laundry basket and your bed's made before you go to school. Like that's an example of a standard. And there's a couple ways to approach this. I like families to agree on a standard so that everyone's like, yes, this seems reasonable. We can all get down with that. And then how we're going to do it, there's two main ways. One way is achieve the standard by a certain time every day. So that's what I just mentioned before. By the time we go to school, we achieve this standard. That works for some families. For other families, it's as a family, we dedicate this chunk of 30 minutes every day to tidying up. We start and then we finish. Even if it's not all totally done, we do the 30 minutes or the 20 minutes or whatever. And we're all doing it at the same time. Like nobody's watching TV, nobody's on their phone, like everybody's doing it for these 20 minutes. And you'll kind of know which of those feels like it's more accessible to your family, would be more successful. But those are two of my ideas. And the nice thing about that is like, you're not really competing or criticizing. You're more saying, look, we've all agreed to this. We're all in this together. Mom and dad, or mom and mom, or dad and dad are doing it too. Like everybody's involved. It's not a like, hey kids, you gotta,
But it's very easy to fall into that.
Yes,
where
so easy.
your sister did this and you didn't do this. So you mentioned middle school and high school, and those years are very, very interesting because kids are actively growing up before our eyes. You know, you have all these hormonal changes, bodily
Hmm.
changes. You have the interpersonal relationships and friendship and foes, and then you have the bullying or not the bullying or whatever in school, and just trying to become their own individual. So do you find that in your experience that kids in the middle school, high school years struggle with organization because everything else in their life is so disorganized? They're just trying to get a handle on these hormones, just coursing through their bodies. And the last thing
Yeah.
they care about is a dish in the sink, you know?
I think it depends on the kid, really. Some kids will rebel by being disorganized, and some kids will try to grab control by being organized. And
Okay.
it can go either way. Like you can have kids who become obsessive and develop some kind of OCD type disorder because they're being so obsessive about organization and cleanliness. And you have other kids who are like, you can't tell me what to do. I'm independent. I'm an adult now. Like, I don't want to do any of this. And I think like as not a parent of teenagers, but having met teenagers and served clients of teenagers, I see the most success when we tie it to the long game and we treat the kid as an independent person who can make their own decisions because they can. Ultimately, they can say, screw you, I'm not going to do it. And you can't really force them. Like you kind of can, but you kind of can't. And so I recommend tying to the long game. So I had a client, this is a while ago. It was an 18-year-old, and we were getting her room organized so that when she went off to college, her mom would not have to deal with the mess that she had left. And at first she was kind of like, I don't know why you're here. My room's always been this way, whatever. And
Right.
what I did was tie it to like, you're about to go to college. What kind of space do you want to come back to? Because you're never going to live here again full time. This is going to be like a hotel for you. This is like a place you're going to visit. And so when you come back and visit, what do you want this to be like? And then what from this do you want to take with you into your new phase of life? How do you see your dorm room? How do you see your friends coming into your space? And like tying it to this future that's exciting rather than to like being parented was very successful. And I don't think that works for every kid, but for this kid in particular, we had a real connection on that. So yeah, like I said, parenting and organizing, both a long game.
Absolutely. And I think there's also a cultural nuance. For me, growing up, and culturally, there was no if, ands, or buts about
Mm-hmm.
organization, tidying, and raising my children in the American culture. I do understand that it's a different dynamic. And I struggle because, again, thank goodness I wasn't the overly organized child. I was not the golden child. So
Mm-hmm.
there's a degree of empathy that goes into that things do not have to be pristine for us to function. However, we need to make sense of our spaces, right? The one
Yeah.
thing I absolutely dislike is looking for things that are so obvious. So use it
Mm-hmm.
and leave it back. Leave it where you got it. Everything at its place. So have you ever encountered, because I know the Asian culture is very similar to the African culture, have you ever encountered a situation where the parents' cultural norm conflicts with the children's cultural norm, given that, okay, I was raised, outside the United States. However, in the United States, kids are allowed to be disorganized and the parents just can't understand it.
Yeah, that's actually pretty common. And in San Francisco, we have a lot of people from Asia who live here, first and second and third and fourth, et cetera, generations. And so I do have a lot of clients who either their parents were immigrants, and I'm dealing with the clients who are in their 30s or 40s, and their immigrant parents are saying, why is your home like this? Or it's my clients are the immigrants and their children are born in America, and there's that
Right.
disconnect. So I do deal with that a lot. Because that's not my culture, I really hesitate to give too much advice on that. I don't think it's necessarily very appropriate, but I do encourage people to think about what's the goal here and how can we work towards the goal instead of like, what's the process? Because being flexible on the process is a lot different than being flexible on the goal. If the goal is like, our house is going to be tidy, I think that's a great goal. I wish more people had that goal. I wish my American born clients had that goal. I see a lot of like extreme leniency with kids in the American born population that is tough to watch. But at the same time, like, you have to sort of like figure out what's going to work for your particular family and what resonates with your particular kids and their brains. And being able to be flexible in the process, I think, is important. And it's also important to like hold people accountable to a goal. And that balance is, there's no perfect answer. That's the essence of parenting, right? That's it. But I think sometimes like the immigrant grandparents will confuse the process with the goal, and separating that out can be very, very helpful.
Yeah. Absolutely. That is such a great point. The process and the goal, two different things. But immigrant parents, you focus on the process because it has to be a lesson. So that's a very immigrant experience. So I know, Lucy, you're located in San Francisco, and people are listening to us from everywhere around the world right now. If somebody absolutely resonates with everything that you're talking about and they would like to work with you, where can they find you? How can they work with you? You're a touch and feely kind of a person. So how is this even possible?
Yeah. So I do virtual organizing, as a matter of fact. Now it's a little bit different because obviously when I'm doing virtual, I can't come into your home. I can't touch your stuff. For some people, that's an asset though. They really prefer that. And so what we do is we get on Zoom for about an hour, and I basically am your consultant and cheerleader to guide you through the process of getting organized. So we don't do the organizing work necessarily while we're on the video, although sometimes we will do extended sessions because they're just like, I'm not going to do this unless I know that you're sitting there watching me. And that's totally fine. I'm happy to do that. But it's more of like we meet, we talk about the issues, we figure out what's next. I lay out the homework, and then you do the homework, and then we meet next week, and then we keep going. So like I said, this is a slow iterative process. It's not an Instagram before and after, although if you do take a picture before we start working together and then you take one after, however many months later, you will get that before and after. It's just not going to happen in one day. So you can work with me virtually from anywhere, and everything is on my website, lmwedits.com. Same handle for Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, all the things. And I also have some organizing guides for purchase on my website. And I have links to some of my favorite organizing products, Amazon and Container Store if you're in the US. Yeah, lots of resources on my website for you.
Yay, thank you. And for anybody who couldn't write fast enough, do not worry. We will have the links in the show notes, so you can just click into it and get to LMW Edits, and you see all the things. So whether it's a guide and you want to challenge yourself to try to do this on your own, or whether it's to consult with Lucy, to work with her one-on-one, or, to, again, buy certain products to help you organize whatever space that is. You can check things out yourself. I absolutely love this conversation. I learned a lot. And yes, I did. It's, when you're kind of like struggling with something, talking about that immigrant experience, the process versus the goal. I have become less of a process person, more on the goal. I have a 13-year-old. We are all exploring life together and experiencing growth together. So there's a lot that goes into it. So I don't want to lose her completely, and I don't want to have her feel like I'm coming down too hard on her. But, the Nigerian in me is like, young lady, no. So,
yeah.
So it's a balancing act. Is that really kind of like really reinforce a lot of things for me. So I appreciate that. So I usually ask for like golden nuggets, or a few golden nuggets for our listeners. What is the one thing that you would like to, or a few things you'd like to say to our listening audience about organizing or being more organized? So whether it's a parent of neurospicy kids, or just a mom trying to quiet the noise of everything talking to her, or parents who wonder why their 40-year-old first-generation immigrant kids are slobs. So,
yeah, the thing that I always tell people is, it's just stuff. You are not your stuff. What matters is your relationships, your passions, the things that light you up, right? The stuff, all it is a tool that helps you do those things. And so reminding yourself that it's just stuff and you're not in the stuff can be really helpful, because I think a lot of us feel like if I get rid of this thing, I'm getting rid of a piece of me. But if you can be, solid in the fact that like what matters is you and you're worthy and your relationships are important, then this stuff loses its power over you and it's easier to wrangle it. So yeah, it's just stuff.
It's just stuff. I like that. It's just stuff. Take the emotions out of it, people. And
Yeah. Yep, exactly.
Thank you, Lucy. This was such a great conversation. I absolutely appreciate you. I appreciate what you do. And I appreciate that you took this on because, you and I talked about this. It takes a special kind of crazy to become an entrepreneur. And, found your crazy, you held it tight and jumped right into it. We do need you in the world. And thank you for recognizing that this is an area that people do need support, and it's incredible. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I really love this conversation. You asked some really great questions. I love that we dove in deep on this. This was great.
Thank you. I appreciate you being here. And everybody, thank you for listening. If there's anything that was said here that really resonated with you, I'm very thankful that we were able to have a conversation that speaks to you. If there's anything, if you would like to hear more from Lucy, have us have this conversation again, please let us know. She's not tired of talking to me, neither am I. Okay?
Nope.
I can tell. Well, let us know what you think. Thank you for listening. And, click in, learn a few things from Lucy. We'll make the website available. All right? Thank you. Take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.
Thanks for tuning in to Abeg's podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave us a review. It really helps us out. We'd love to hear your thoughts and continue the discussion. So join us on social media or drop us a message. Until next time, keep exploring, stay curious, and keep pushing the boundaries of your world.